Hey, welcome to our series on victimology. And I want to be clear when we start out that when I say victimology, what I mean is adopting the perspective of a victim. I am not talking about actually being victimized in your life, because we've all legitimately been victimized at one time or another. What I'm addressing here is the tendency to hang on to a victimized perspective and engage many situations from that vantage point. Now, if you're not sure if you've engaged or if you're engaging a victimized perspective in any situation or relationship or circumstance, this series will be extremely helpful. Number one, blame. Notice how often you find yourself in blame. And blame can sound very obvious, like I'm blaming someone for something, but blame can also sound a little more subtle. Maybe, I don't know why they did that. It always happens this way. I never had a chance to do it. And I tried really, really hard. When you hear yourself saying things like always and never, tried really hard, that lets you know that at some level, you're blaming someone or something else for the way your life is or isn't turning out, for what you have decided is or isn't possible, for whether your gift is getting given or not. It's a way to point the finger and avoid your participation, in a sense, your contribution to the situation at hand or to the relationship. So ask yourself, what type of language am I using? Start to pay attention, elevate your awareness. And what game are you playing? Because if you're playing the victim game, probably someone in your life needs to be the villain, and of course someone else needs to be the savior. And maybe sometimes you're the victim and the savior. It depends. Some of us are really multi-talented that way. Start to notice the different roles and perspectives that you put people in, especially as you find patterns in your relationships, whether they're at work or whether they're at home. What do you tell yourself? That you're always the person who fill in the blank, or I'm never the person who fill in the blank. Test it out this week and see what you notice. So part two, I'd like you to look at power and the experience of being powerless. Now, we've all experienced legitimate powerlessness, I'm sure, at different times in our life, often as children. The reality is, though, we all have power. So what are you doing with the power you have? Are you using the power you have to play powerless, like the possum playing dead? Or are you using the power you have to infuse your energy with confidence and clarity? Do you ask questions? Do you make requests? Do you move forward with action? Or do you find that your experience of powerlessness keeps you in the background, hidden, silent, when you actually have the ability to speak? I wonder who's paying prices for you deciding to use your power to be powerless. Part three, credit. How often are you consumed with who is getting the credit? Are you getting the credit? You should be getting the credit. Maybe you don't get the credit you think you deserve. Deserving and credit and fairness, these are all conversations from a victimized perspective. I'm going to ask you to consider, because this could be a difficult one to really grab onto. Imagine you're looking at your life and you're looking at what you give and what other people give, and you're looking at receiving, and you're looking at this great exchange that is happening around us all the time, and that's possible in the context of work and family and just human connection. And when you start parsing it into small packages of blame and credit and whether something is fair or not, you're essentially reducing the experience to a transaction. You're trying to make something happen instead of receive what's already present. Notice where you get caught up in credit. It could be a window for you to open up your mind, to open up your attitude to a more responsible way of contributing at home, at work, and on your team. Part 4, looking for a caretaker. Remember, victimology is really a perspective. It's not about what did or didn't happen to you. It's about the way you're relating to who you are, what you have to offer, and what's possible with your life. So imagine if you are living in a victim context, a victim perspective of the world. Clearly, there are ways that you've decided you're helpless, that things aren't going to turn out, that you don't have what you need or what it takes, that other people are actually to blame or at fault for whatever you have or don't have in life. And naturally, you are going to be looking, you're going to gravitate towards a caretaker, somebody that will come in and manage your life for you. So you don't have the burdensome responsibility of your free will, of your choice. Now, every single victim perspective looks for another human to come along with a caretaking perspective. It's like a symbiotic type of relationship. The caretaker gets to feel superior and like they're doing a great job, and they get to avoid their own problems, and there's all kinds of goodies that happens for the caretaker. And for the victim, they get the privilege of avoiding responsibility for their own choices, for their own life. Now, this amazing symbiotic relationship doesn't usually end well. It usually ends in anger and resentment and blame on both sides. But in the moment, it seems like just a great deal. So you might ask yourself, when you do an inventory of your relationships, where do you see that you might default into this role, into either role? Because sometimes we like to switch it up. Do you ride to the rescue for people? Ready! Or are you the one that likes to be rescued? Are you the one that likes to have people come in and take care of things that you could take care of yourself and you're choosing not to? So if you find yourself in either of these dynamics, try a couple new things. Number 1, ask yourself, what is my contribution to the current situation? In other words, what can I own? Look at where you have abdicated responsibility or you've turned over the power to make choices to somebody else. Number 2, ask yourself honestly, what am I getting out of this dynamic? Is it really just comfort? Do I get to feel taken care of? Does it feel safe somehow? And when you identify that, then ask yourself, what prices are you paying to live this way? Is it resignation, frustration, ultimately depression, despair, anxiety? And what prices do the people around you pay? There are people in your life that are waiting for you to show up. There are people that miss you when you check out. Maybe ask a few people, what's happening for them when you live in this dynamic?